In heavy-duty trucking, an engine is judged by one cold metric: uptime. For nearly a decade, Cummins was losing that war. Their flagship X15 had become a financial anchor, costing American fleets over $1 billion in unplanned repairs and lost revenue. Cummins was at a tipping point. They needed a machine so superior it would make the ISX obsolete. Enter the X15, the billion-dollar gamble that changed the math of the American highway forever. Part 1. The ISX Debt Trap. To understand why the X15 is celebrated, we must first look at the wreckage it was built to clear. The X15 was designed to meet the strict EPA standards of 2010. On paper, it was a marvel of emissions technology. In reality, it was a maintenance nightmare. The primary culprit was the EGR, or exhaust gas recirculation system. By pumping soot-heavy exhaust back into the intake to lower combustion temperatures, the engine was essentially being forced to breathe its own waste. For fleet managers, this translated to a debt trap. A failing EGR valve or a clogged DPF filter could sideline a truck for 3 days. In the year 2012, the average cost of downtime for a Class 8 truck was estimated at $800 per day in lost revenue alone. That does not include the $3,000 repair bill or the cost of a towed unit. But the most feared failure was the camshaft. The X15 suffered from pitting on the cam lobes, a mechanical failure that required a complete top-end teardown. For a fleet of 500 trucks, a 10% failure rate meant millions of dollars in unplanned capital expenditure. By 2014, the Cummins advantage was disappearing, and competitors like Detroit Diesel and PACCAR were ready to pounce. Cummins knew that if their next platform wasn't a total victory, they would lose their position as the #1 independent engine builder in the world. Part 2. The $1.5 billion clean sheet. Cummins didn't just tweak the ISX. They invested over $1.5 billion into the X15 platform. The goal was simple: simplify the air, optimize the heat, and reduce the friction. They moved away from the complex dual overhead cam design of the early ISX and focused on a single cam architecture that was lighter and more robust. The X15 was launched in 2017 with a two-tier strategy: the Efficiency Series and the Performance Series. This wasn't just marketing. It was a pivot toward financial forensics. Cummins realized that a truck pulling a refrigerated trailer from Indiana to California has different financial needs than a truck pulling a lowboy trailer with a bulldozer. The Performance Series was built for the high end. It offered up to 605 horsepower and 2,050 pound-feet of torque. It was designed to maintain high average speeds on steep grades, which is critical for time-sensitive heavy hauling. However, the Efficiency Series was the true ISX killer. It focused on the sweet spot of the torque curve, allowing drivers to stay in top gear longer. Cummins introduced the XPI, high-pressure common rail fuel system, which provided multiple injection events per cycle. This made the combustion so precise that it reduced the amount of soot produced in the first place, placing less strain on the expensive after-treatment systems. Part 3. The Single Module Revolution. The biggest technical leap that made the ISX obsolete wasn't inside the engine block, it was hanging off the frame rail. The old ISX used a massive, multi-piece after-treatment system that was heavy and prone to sensor failure. The X15 introduced the single module aftertreatment. It was 60% smaller and 40% lighter than what came before. In the trucking business, weight is money. By removing nearly 200 pounds of weight from the emission system, Cummins allowed fleets to carry 200 pounds more freight. Over the course of a year, that extra capacity adds up to thousands of dollars in additional revenue per truck. More importantly, the single module was designed for thermal management. It was much better at keeping the DPF at the correct temperature without needing active regenerations, the process where the truck has to burn extra fuel just to clean the filter. Cummins claimed the X15 offered a 3 to 5% improvement in fuel economy over the 2013 ISX. In a fleet of 100 trucks, a 3% fuel saving can equate to over $200,000 in annual profit. This was the moment the ISX became obsolete. Why would a fleet manager keep a truck that cost more to fuel and more to fix? Part 4. The cost of ownership autopsy. Let's perform a financial autopsy on the X15's first 5 years in the market. By 2021, the data from major fleets like Penske and Ryder was clear. The X15 was achieving 99% uptime in many segments. The maintenance intervals were extended significantly. Oil change intervals were pushed out to 75,000 miles for trucks achieving over 7 miles per gallon. Compare that to the 25,000-mile intervals of the previous decade. By tripling the interval, a fleet reduces its oil and filter costs by 66% for a truck that runs 500,000 miles before it is traded in. That is a direct saving of nearly $10,000 in preventative maintenance. Cummins also introduced connected diagnostics. This allowed the engine to talk to the home office. If a sensor started to drift, the fleet manager knew before the truck actually broke down. This turned reactive maintenance, which is expensive and chaotic, into predictive maintenance, which is controlled and affordable. The ISX was an engine you reacted to. The X15 was an engine you managed. Part 5. The legacy of the X15. As we move toward the year 2027, the X15 is transitioning again. Cummins has announced the Helm platform, which will feature a unified base engine capable of running on multiple fuels. But the X15 will be remembered as the engine that saved the brand. It took the hard lessons of the ISX era and turned them into a mechanical masterclass in reliability. It made the ISX obsolete not just through power, but through the science of the bottom line. It proved that a V8 wasn't necessary for massive torque, and that a clean engine didn't have to be a broken engine. For the owner-operator and the fleet CEO alike, the X15 became the safe bet in an industry where a bad bet can lead to bankruptcy. If you appreciate the deep history and the financial math behind the machines that move America, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Rare Wheel Stories. We are rebuilding this channel one deep dive at a time, and your support is what keeps the lights on. Let us know in the comments, is the X15 the greatest diesel engine of the modern era, or do you still miss the simplicity of the pre-emissions days? Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next story.